In the deep, dark heart of the Venezuelan rainforest live a people who even today remain almost totally isolated from the outside world. But this is no lost tribe. The Yanomami were first contacted by outsiders over 100 years ago. But very little about their life has changed. The Yanomami today are as remote from the bustle of the modern world as it is possible to be. They remain totally absorbed in the life of the forest, communing with the spirits through the daily use of hallucinogenic drugs. 4 years ago, as part of a small film crew, I spent 3 months with these people. And before I left, I made an impulsive promise to one of the young Indians that one day I would return and satisfy his curiosity by taking him on a journey to the world beyond the forest. It was only later that I began to recognize the real implications of what I was suggesting. The promise I'd made was completely unrealistic, but I was now determined to honor it. There is a widely accepted view that indigenous peoples should be protected from the outside world, their innocence preserved. But my experience of the Yanomami convinced me that they were entirely capable of making their own decisions. My self-appointed minder, Shamupusiwe, known to us as Tapir, was so curious to know where we came from that now, 4 years on, I'm returning to honor my promise and take him on a trip to England. Tapir's village is 600 miles from the nearest small town, and the closest I can get by plane is a remote Catholic mission station at Platanal. As the plane touches down, the first person I spot is one of the young Indians whom I knew from my first visit. Then another face from the past appears, the one man whose local influence and organizational skills can turn my proposed jungle trek into a reality.
This is Alfredo. This is the chief of this particular village, and he's an old mate of mine, and thank God he is, because without him we'd be completely sunk.
I've been invited to stay the night at the mission before setting off on the 30-mile walk to Tapir's village, Erimawateri. My host is Padre Bortoli, an Italian missionary who has devoted more than half his life to the welfare of the Yanomami. Bortoli is passionately committed to protecting the Indians and their territory from outside exploitation. I was anxious to know what he felt about my plans.
Bueno, muy bueno.
I'm sure there are people who would say that I should never have embarked on the project, but do you think that it's a dangerous thing to do?
No, they have the right to do that kind of experience. I want to go outside and see other people, why I cannot? Because they are Yanomami, they can go outside and see other people, why not? It's a human right, no? Everybody has the right to go and to see other things and to change if he wants to change. Why we can't prohibit to do that kind of change? Nobody. No? I think so.
The next morning, we gathered a team of porters and set off. Within minutes, we were into dense rainforest, home to some of the most dangerous snakes on Earth, not to mention venomous spiders and a hideous selection of biting insects.
We're 5 minutes into the journey here. All the bags are falling apart, but they're telling me that I've got to walk on ahead, which is probably very sensible because it's because they know they can make up the time and I can't. Okay, vamos. Okay, and the first log crossing of the journey, and it's a big log, no hay problema.
The cameraman and I, neither of us particularly intrepid, felt rather chuffed that we were keeping ahead of the other porters. But stopping for a moment to catch my breath, I began to sense that something had gone horribly wrong.
I think I'm just beginning to prove rather effectively that I'm not officer material. We set off with 5 porters only an hour ago. We're now down to 1. Now, admittedly, some of them have got very heavy loads and it may be taking them longer than it's taking us. But one of them has already abandoned his bag on the path, so we're lumbered with an extra bag. Our friend here would like to come to England. He'd like my trousers, he'd like my shirt, he'd like virtually everything. He'd particularly like some biscuits, and we haven't got the biscuits with us. The biscuits are in one of the other bags. And although it's at the moment not a major emergency, there is the awful possibility that the 3 porters who are actually supposed to be following us have given up and either abandoned the bags and just run away, or taking our bags away with them. So we just have to wait and see.
And so we waited. And we waited.
You know, I've had deep affection for the Yanomami, but they are a strange people. They live in an incredibly tough environment. I mean, that we are just utterly pathetic, and I mean, the very fact that we just drip sweat all the time. And we're just not built for this environment, so we're immediately a joke. And unfortunately, because I do play the fool, and I'm perfectly happy to admit that I do play the fool, and half of the, you know, not half of them, but there is one part of these people that actually, I think, finds me quite endearing, but there's another half of them that just think, what a bloody arsehole. Whilst we were filming my little reflective bit, just away from eating insects, our final loyal porter is also pissed off. So we now have been completely abandoned. I'm sure we can find our way back from here, ish. I'm reasonably certain we can find our way back from here. But we have no insect repellent. Their world is so bloody different to ours, so bloody different. But I just worry that when we go back to the mission, we will be told that we are stupid nabby and we have no idea how to treat the Yanomami, and that we should have been firmer with them and everything else, and maybe we should have done, and that's the problem with my language.
I was now going to have to face the indignity of returning to the mission having failed at the very first hurdle.
I'm not that tough, I'm not a disciplinarian, but I'm bloody going to well start to be one. You bastards! You just wait till I get my hands on you. I should never even have started on this, but I cannot believe that I'll walk into the jungle after 2 hours. Ah! Oh! Okay. Woo! So what's happened? They've eaten all the food. Ah! 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 Okay, bueno. ¿Qué es el problema?
A dictionary would have been helpful at this point, but with a bit of guesswork and as much Spanish and Yanomami as I could muster, I began to realise that we didn't have a mutiny on our hands, but simply one exhausted porter who hadn't bothered to sleep the night before.
Well, it seems like, yeah, Haro is one of our porters. So is Haro okay? Bueno? Haro bueno?
Sí, bien.
Potitawa. All right.
Bueno.
Okay, yeah, so he's coming. So everything... Oh, dear. What is this self-doubt? Let's cut this.
And so, having virtually returned to square one, the walk started all over again. I have to admit that every mile seemed painfully familiar.